Good morning, Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, a Haggerty10 Twitter handle, as you can see, and I'm joined today on Tuesday by Alison McConnell. Morning, Alison. How are you doing?
Very well, Tony. Yourself?
Yes, I'm very well. Now, we're just about to share some hot off the press news, Alison, with some of the supporters that might know or might not know. A Portuguese journal is claiming that Jota has informed Benfica of his intentions to sign for Celtic in a permanent move. Now, we've said all along that it was always going to come down to the player's preference, and it looks like that Jota has been convinced that his future lies in Glasgow and not back home with his hometown club in Benfica. If that's true, it's a wonderful boost for Celtic and supporters, isn't it?
I think it would be a tremendous boost. I think Celtic's perspective, I think as a club they wanted to keep him. I think as a fan base they were very keen for him to say you've seen what he offers in a creative sense. I think he's been an integral part of Ange Postecoglou's side. But I would just offer a few words of caution that while it would be tentatively well received in Glasgow, I think sometimes you maybe want to just hang fire and wait until there's official confirmation and maybe just check a few sources to clarify the information that's coming out. But certainly if, and I'll stress the word if, but if it turns out that he has intimated that he'd like to stay at Celtic, I think it would be a very positive first signing around the club to start all the summer preparations and what's going to happen in terms of just adding to the squad for next term. So I think it would be a very announcement. I would just caution that by saying,
yes.
It would be best just to hang fire and just to maybe just check a few sources and ascertain the validity of the information that we're hearing.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that, Alan. Yeah, Alison even. Yeah, yes, indeed. We've spoken about Jota a lot throughout the season, Alison. He had a wonderful start. Then he got injured. Then he had a wee dip. But in the last couple of weeks, he's really came to the fore again. He scored an important goal against Ross County, scored the opener against Rangers in the 1-each draw. But again, another player who just seems to be enjoying his football at the minute at Celtic and happy players. That's a big thing for a lot of footballers in this day and age, not just money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no doubt about that. I think there's all sorts of things at play. I think money is a realistic factor for players. I think if someone's offering you maybe 3 times your salary somewhere else, we live in the real world. It's a no-brainer sometimes at times. But I would agree with you. I think he's found a home at Celtic. I think he has played well. I thought he played well against Rangers. I thought he played well the week before against Ross County. What I would say, just to clarify, that report doesn't say that he's actually spoken to Benfica. I think it just basically says that he's told Celtic have told Benfica that they'd like to exercise their right to buy option. So I think it's obviously, if that's correct, it is very much a positive step towards securing him on a permanent basis. And I think he's young enough that he might fancy another season or two at Celtic. Exposure to the Champions League could then take him on to another level. I've been sceptical about that. I mean, I think in January I was saying to you that I thought he would hang fire to this summer and assess his options. I did think, if there were other places to go, he would give it consideration. But I think if he made the move to stay, I think it would be positively welcomed by everyone at the club, because I think you can see the contribution that he made over the course of the campaign.
Yeah. And he's very much established himself as a fan's favourite player, Alison. He's very popular and he seems to be a popular player in the dressing room as well. Now, here's lots of comments coming in, but Pete McGee says guaranteed Champions League may well persuade loan players to say. Brian Walsh said, you would like to think that the carrot of Champions League football and the promise of more domestic success should be enough to keep Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers at the club next season. And Joe O'Donnell says, Jota's here for Champions League, good vibes. Now, I think, Alison, that on the back of that was the announcement yesterday that the Scottish Premiership title winners will go straight into the group stages of the Champions League because Russian clubs have been banned. So there's no dubiety about that. Whoever wins the title goes straight into the Champions League group stages, which at this minute, it's looking like it's going to be Celtic. Now, that's a stage that not many clubs, I think, will be able to offer Jota or the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers, and that's the pinnacle of any player's club career. It is a big carrot for Celtic to dangle in front of them should they get this title over the line, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an incentive. I definitely think being able to offer group stage Champions League football, I think it is a carrot. I also think it bolsters Celtic ahead of the transfer window opening in terms of finances. I think sometimes throughout August, what you have is a question mark over what the budget can potentially be, given whether or not there's access to the group stages of Champions League. I think there's no dubiety or ambiguity about that this term. I don't think the budget wavers hugely, but I think it just might give you some leeway in certain cases. And I think we all know it's not really transfer fees or the first payout when it comes to bringing players in and signing them. It's salary terms and conditions for the duration of the contract. It's always a consideration. And contracts aren't only for 1 year. Contracts run for 2, 3 years, sometimes 4 years in James McCarthy's case. And I think Celtic will still be cautious about that, about overcommitting. But I think it does strengthen their hand. And you know exactly what the budget is likely to be this summer. And crucially, I think you're not thinking, well, if you don't make the group stages of the Champions League, do you have to still compensate for that shortfall? So I think it takes some of the questions away. And in terms of players and the point of view of offering that stage, I do think it's significant.
Yes, I mean, it was always a lot I thought would depend and ride upon the fact that in order to persuade the likes of Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers to stay, what European competition Celtic would be playing in next season. And they are, in all intents and purposes, 1 win away from securing that automatic slot in the Champions League. So it strengthened Celtic's hand. It always was going to strengthen Celtic's hand when it came to concluding a deal for both of them, wasn't it, Alison?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think if you're a player and you know that you have the opportunity to go and feature on that stage, then you know you have a fairly wide audience. You know that you've got an opportunity to go and impress your talents and your technique to watching clubs throughout Europe. It's a pretty prestigious stage, and it's an opportunity to test yourself against the very best and see how you prevail. And I would say that as a team too, I'm sure collectively Celtic will be excited about the prospect of going back into Champions League football for the first time in 5 seasons.
Yep.
I think it's a very difficult arena, and I think it'll be intriguing to see what happens over the summer, to see which players come in, how the starting lineup is tweaked, and then too just how Celtic might go and play against teams that are capable and can be very capable of doing real damage. As you saw preview, Barcelona and PSG games were fairly sobering during Brendan Rodgers' times. But I think it will be intriguing to see how Celtic go on, and crucially, I think it's an exciting environment to be part of. I think it helps to raise the profile of the club, and I think for players, it just offers a whole other addendum to the campaign.
Now, you spoke about it there in terms of players, also more players coming in. Celtic yesterday appointed Mark Lawwell, Peter Lawwell's son, as head of recruitment. Now, a lot of Celtic supporters have their own opinions on that, Alison, but he has worked with Ange before at Yokohama F. Marinos, and Ange said he's delighted to have him on board. And he's also worked with Pep at Manchester City. What's your own thoughts on that, Mark Lawwell coming in to head up Celtic's recruitment?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting announcement. I think clearly he has a background and relationship with Celtic, out with obviously the family connection. I think the City group have been well linked with Celtic in recent seasons. I also thought it maybe just suggested that he was pretty influential in Ange Postecoglou's appointment. I thought he was maybe the conduit between the clubs. I think his background just now, from what we've heard, would suggest that he has a decent level of experience in recruitment and liaisons. And if he has an existing relationship with Ange Postecoglou, I think that probably helps, just given given the chance now to go and work. I think we've spoken before about Celtic maybe having to modernise that structure and maybe not having everything fallen at the manager's head, which seems over the course of this season, it seems that Ange Postecoglou has identified and brought in players, if you think of the Japanese market that you obviously knew particularly well, but I think he might welcome some support in that vein. Yeah. I think what you would say is, if it isn't a successful partnership, then I think it will invite accusations of nepotism very quickly. Yes. I think there will be some pressure on him in that sense, maybe just to identify as his own man and to show, more crucially really, that he can do the job and do the job properly. And I think if you get it right and you have a successful team in the park, there's no real conversations about all these elements of the club. I think it slides into the background. What happens is, if there is a stutter on the pitch, then it brings things to the fore, and that's when it magnifies certain issues. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is, does he go in, do his job properly, do it well, then you won't hear many criticisms. If the converse is true, then I'm sure you'll hear a different set of things.
Ted comes in and says if Ange likes him, then all good. Ange is very much, he was quoted last night saying he was delighted to have him on board. And there's a wicked aside. Michael McDonald comes in and says, nice shot, Tony's at a big country concert tonight. Yeah, I'm just about to practice my line dancing once this briefing ends. But Prophet of Doom, Frank Brennan comes in and says that, Alison, like it or not, we just can't compete with money. Both Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota can get elsewhere. So we have to face the harsh reality that the two of them won't be with us next season. That's despite the fact that there's a Portuguese outlet claiming that Celtic are going to exercise the right to buy Jota and that it looks like he might be staying. But yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Frank will come out in the wash at the end of the season. And John Curry comes in and says, if Ange truly wants Matt Law and it's a decision to bring him in, then fine. If it's a bold appointment, then it's not on. And Rab McCune comes in, and Ange we trust. If he wants the lad and trust him, that's good enough for me. He's not got many wrong calls so far. And Neely Morrison comes in and says, can't be all about Ange. He needs to be right for the club, not just the managers, surely. So if Ange is happy to work with him, Alison, then that would tell you a lot, because the two of them have worked before.
I actually think it's key. I think anyone going into that role, regardless of background or relationships and existing ties with the club, I think whoever takes that role, I actually think is key to having a positive working relationship with the manager. I think on a personal level, I think it's important that they like one another. It's important that you then also have a similar professional outlook, that you understand the needs of one another and the constraints of one another's positions. I think there's a professional respect necessary, as well as a personal relationship that's important and fundamental to a role such as that. And I think if they have had a working relationship, and I would take the point that it might be overcooked slightly when it's been presented, but I think if they do have an existing working relationship that has been productive on both parts, then I think that helps in the creation of going into Celtic and establishing a new chapter around the recruitment side of things, because it's such an important aspect of the running of the club.
Tim Anon comes in, Alison, and says Matt Law was identifying players for Pep, that Pep Guardiola was buying for 50 million plus. Don't know how that will work at Celtic. Well, it won't work because Celtic won't be identifying 50 million pound players, but it's just on a smaller scale. He'll be doing the same job, won't he? So that's the bottom line, to bring in quality players that can move Celtic forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what you're judged on. You know, you're judged on the success of the players that you put on the pitch, how they fit into your system, and the assimilation then of players in that relationship. And I think when everything is going well, when you have a winning team, if you are winning titles and bringing success to your club, then I think no one looks too far. I think everyone accepts that. But I think it's when things go wrong, like last season, then that's when you have discord and you have criticism. So I think very much it comes down to a successful relationship between the manager and Mark Lowell, and the introduction of players that enhance the quality that is there just now. And I take the point that someone commented about different budgets, but I think you work with what you have. You work within the constraints of the finances that you have, and I think he will appreciate that the finances are significantly different going from Manchester City to Celtic, and I think you work within the parameters of what you have.
Brilliant. Well, it's never a dull day when you're talking about Celtic, Alison. There's always topics that rear up, and that was some breaking news this morning, or maybe breaking news. We'll find that out in the fullness of time. But always enjoy your contribution, and thanks for the comments coming in, guys. I'll just end with this one. Frank said something there a second ago. Can't remember. Where is it? Can't find it. He said he's not the prophet. Yeah, there he is. Facing the harsh realities of life is not being a prophet of doing anything. I think that's a bite back at me. Okay, Frank. No worries. I'll take that on board. But yes, Alison, we shall see what happens in the case of Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers. But there's positive vibes around it just now.
Yeah, there certainly is. I think Celtic, the suggestion that Celtic have told Benfica they want to exercise their right to buy would suggest maybe that talks have taken place, that he's intimated that he would like to stay. I think it's certainly it opens dialogue in any case, and I think that's very important, because I think if it transpires that he's not going to stay, I think Celtic need that call to come early.
Yeah, indeed. We shall reconvene and we'll build up to the Hearts game as we go along this week. Alison, you'll be back with me tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, won't you?
I'll see you then.
See you then. Thanks for your contribution. Always appreciate it. And thanks for the comments, guys. Always appreciate that as well. All the best. Hope you have a decent day.
Thank you.